Want to make the most out of your RTX 40 series graphics card? Check out this clip from our recent stream.
Cool. Let's check this out. So I'm going to load a save that I had yesterday. I just started playing through this game again on PC, and oh my gosh, it's amazing for so many reasons. First of all, because the Spider-Man is just amazing, right? But the settings and stuff that Nixies have put into this is awesome. And because this is actually a pretty CPU heavy game, you can see my GPU is only pegged at about 50%, and I'm getting a little under 60 frames per second. This is at 4K ultra settings, okay? When you're swinging through the city, the game is using a lot of CPU, and so the GPU isn't actually getting a chance to flex its muscles necessarily. However, if we go into a cutscene, if we go into certain indoor missions or combat scenarios, some boss battles, then the GPU is going to be no more necessary because the CPU isn't rendering everything out in the city, all the traffic and NPCs and stuff like that. So as soon as we walk into the Feast Center here, for this little cutscene that we're going to watch, you can see that my GPU jumps way
usage
up.
has gone way up already, yeah.
Way up to 87%. And it's able to get a much higher frame rate as a result. So that's cool. This is really, really good performance for Spider-Man at 4K, or sorry, not 4K. It's 1440p ultra wide, so it's almost 4K with maxed out settings. No ray tracing at the moment, but we'll look at that in a second. So once you get into this office, jumps down for a second, but yeah, there we go. Pretty much max CPU usage. You've got really great like detail in the hair and skins and everything because the settings are just completely maxed out. Okay, so it is now daytime. We can swing around through the city here. And again, like we saw earlier, GPU is not really going to get a chance to do everything that it can do. It's only about 50%. Getting decent frame rates, above 60 in this particular scene. We were a little below 60 earlier when we were trying that. So not terrible, but man, this is a game that really deserves higher frame rates. But it also deserves ray tracing. Let's check this out. Let's jump on the side of this building over here. Bloop. There we go. Okay. Oh, yeah. Look at those sweet, sweet low-res
it looks awesome.
reflections.
Yeah.
It does look good. So this is without ray tracing. It could be a lot better.
It still looks good, right? But the difference.
So let's go into the settings here. And let's turn on ray tracing. So remember, we're using the third gen RT cores. I'm sorry. So when we turn on, so here we go, ray trace reflections. Boom. It is going to look so much better. So you can see you have so much more detail over here. Do I have a cursor here? Yeah. So a lot more detail in the buildings and stuff. And the nice thing about Spider-Man is that you can turn some of these settings down. I'll give it a second to re-render here. And so you could have like moderate ray tracing, and you can still see the much more accurate reflections, but you can tell that there isn't as much detail. So like these windows right here, you aren't seeing like the structure around those windows like you do if you turn it up to very high. Give it another second here. So see, you have a lot more detail on those windows. I want my ray tracing high. The problem is ray tracing in this game actually, despite the amazing RT cores in this particular game, ray tracing pegs the CPU pretty hard as well because it has to render, again, all that traffic and the NPCs and stuff in the background. It's also streaming in a ton of assets as you swing through the city. So now we're getting sub 60 frame rates, which is
not a huge hit, but it's not what you want. Yeah.
It's sub 60. I don't do sub 60. Okay?
Well, yeah, no.
So this is where I did not expect this to be the case when I put the 4070 Ti in, and it is a little bit lower than it would normally be since I am capturing video, but
which uses probably like 3 to 5% CPU for those curious.
Yeah. This was my saving grace last night when I was playing this. DLSS 3's frame generation. Turn it on. Why? Now, keep in mind, we could turn on regular DLSS, but if the game is CPU bound, DLSS is basically lowers the resolution to get you more frames. Lowering the resolution doesn't get you more frames when you're CPU bound because it's not the resolution that's the problem. It's all the calculations that the CPU is doing in the background for the objects in the scene. So if I turned on DLSS quality or DLSS performance, we would get the same frame rate. DLSS is not useful in this CPU bound scenario. DLSS frame generation, on the other hand, Holy moly, all of a sudden it is so much smoother. I'm getting over 100 frames per second.
That's such a huge change. Like
Even though
nearly
I'm
double the
CPU down.
FPS. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like it's immediately noticeable. It feels so much smoother. And because, I mean, this is one of those games where that smoothness really kind of matters because you're swinging through the city. There's a lot of movement, a lot of fast movement, especially in combat and things like that. And actually, I'm going to go to a combat scene right now so we can really put DLSS 3 through its paces. But I was so, so impressed with how much of a difference DLSS 3's frame generation made in that scenario. So like DLSS 3 is going to be amazing in any scenario, but particularly in a CPU bound scenario where other settings tweaks and traditional DLSS might not be able to help you. DLSS would raise the frame rate in those cutscenes we were watching earlier. And it would actually raise the frame rate in this battle that I'm about to go into because it's indoors and there isn't as much CPU overhead. But
I love this fight.
I love this fight too. But DLSS 3 works everywhere, all the time, which is really, really cool. Hey, Power GPU, thanks for rating. Welcome. Playing Spider-Man with DLSS 3.
Getting shocked by the shocker.
I know. So like these little cutscenes and stuff, when he's getting tossed around the room, it is so smooth with that frame generation. We're getting 140 frames per second, and I'm on a 200 hertz display. So sky's the limit in terms of how high the refresh rate can go, and how good it's going to look, which is why DLSS 3 is so awesome to have here. And especially so like this fight is a good example too, because once it starts, here we go. I got to like start swinging around the room, right, to try and dodge his stuff. And that's really hard to do when things are being really choppy. If I was running at like, 50 frames per second here, I mean, the first time I played this game, I played it at 30 frames per second. And I'll tell you, it's a good game. But 30 frames per second is rough.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be able to finally play this game at high refresh rates.
Yeah, so you're hitting around 120 to 140, I guess we can just call it even at 130. And GPU is very much pegged. I mean, it's down to 85 right now, but it's usually hovering around 90%, which is what you want. Really, really just getting the most out of your card here.
And I have not noticed any sort of image quality degradation while I'm playing this. Obviously, DLSS 3 is using AI to draw those extra frames in the background.
Yep.
And like DLSS, like regular DLSS, like it has pros and cons. But when you're moving this quickly and when the frame rate is this fast, you don't really notice that stuff, right? You're focused on the task at hand, and everything just looks smooth and amazing. Oh,
easy clap. Easiest game of your life.
I know. I love like the little cutscene battles in this game. Anyway, so that's Spider-Man. That is what I wanted to show off, because I was actually a little worried because I wanted to use a game that showcased DLSS 3, but I was like, Spider-Man is so CPU heavy, I don't know if it's going to make sense to show off. Turns out it was the perfect example of where DLSS 3 really, really shines.
Thanks for watching our tour of the ROG Strix GeForce RTX 4070 Ti. To see more of our hands-on coverage, check out the full stream in the description below, and as always, subscribe to us here on YouTube and check out our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/AsusROG.